Hey, John.
Eric, how you doing tonight? Don't tell me that caught you by surprise.
I really, really want to have something different to say with that question every week, and it surprises me every week.
Oh, it's okay.
It's good. It was Inauguration Day.
It was Inauguration Day. That's right.
Did you get to watch any of the festivities?
I actually did. I kind of played hooky from work for an hour, 45 minutes or so. And my younger boys' class had asked them to watch the inauguration. So they did a late start this morning so that he could watch it. So
right.
Actually, all four of us sat down in the room down here, and I actually missed Kamala's swearing in ceremony, part of the ceremony, because I thought that it started at 9, and so I was still on the call, and so anyway, it's all good. But I caught it. So, and actually, part of that's going to be my something fun tonight. So,
I didn't mean to spoil it.
We'll talk later. Yeah. Did you watch any of it?
I was able to, during my lunch hour, I found a YouTube video stream and went and kind of zipped back and forth so I could watch the various swearings in and zip to a couple different
there you
go pieces. I did not watch it live until this evening for dinner. While we sat and ate dinner, we watched the post festivities, the fireworks and everything tonight.
Cool.
That were happening this evening. So
yeah. So
yeah,
that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Uh-huh.
I look forward to seeing what the next few weeks brings. It's going to be interesting, I think.
That's one way to put it.
How about this weekend? What'd you do this past week?
So this past week, I have gotten hooked on a little side project that I've been working on off and on for probably a few months, just toying around with an idea in my head. And finally something hooked, and I know when I get serious about an idea when I go and register a domain. That's like a tipping point for me. I think
some form of gate.
Yeah. So
you have a domain.
I have a domain. It doesn't say anything yet or do anything yet, but maybe by next week I will have it available. Maybe if I keep up at the pace I'm at with the.
All right.
I've got it almost. I mean, I have it all working, and this is kind of fun here, talking about all the things I have working, but not actually letting anyone in on what I actually have yet.
Yeah.
Don't over. Don't overestimate what it is. It's
always good to overpromise and underdeliver. That's
it is a very, very simple tool. It just solves a problem that I have with my Mac, and I've been learning how to do some programming. So I thought, well, I'll stick it in the Mac App Store just because why not?
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, publish the source code, and people can download and build it themselves for free if they want. But just a fun little idea. No. I'll say more next week, I guess.
A little bit more when it's done. Okay, that's awesome.
I'll give a teaser now.
That's awesome.
So that was my whole weekend, and that'll probably be my next weekend.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Probably.
Yeah, that's cool. Nothing wrong with programming on the weekends.
No, especially when it's, something fun for me.
Exactly.
Something fun for me to do.
That's
awesome.
And
I don't know if I want to mention it yet again. We've discovered yet another water problem in the house.
No. Oh, this is the dishwasher. I saw your tweet.
Yes, the dishwasher decided that the rest of the house was having too much fun without it, and some part broke on the dishwasher. I don't know if it's but it was dripping, and it apparently has been just slow dripping every time there's a wash for a long time. Because when I pulled all the dishwasher and everything out, it was stained. The wood, underneath was stained. So there is now a drip tray underneath it.
Okay.
A hard plastic drip tray underneath it. We're not using it, but this was Friday when I discovered it. And so I called a Sears appliance repair, because that's where we got the dishwasher from. This was before Sears went belly up, or at least belly up locally, but they still have all their stuff. And it's long enough, it's out of warranty, but I called anyways because we'd used them for repairs before, and they sell the brand that we had or used to. And they had an appointment opening for Monday, which was a holiday, but they had an appointment between 1 and 5. And I thought, perfect. So about noon on Monday, the guy calls and says, I've got 4 appointments before you. I might not be able to make it today. I'm like, all right, as long as you can come tomorrow. He's like, well, I don't know if I'll be able to come tomorrow either. I'm like, all right. He said, well, I have to check my schedule when I can come if I can't make it. So about 3 o'clock, he calls and says, yeah, I'm not going to make it. I still have 3 more appointments before you. Let me check my reschedule. He's probably looking at some app that he has on his device to tell him when he can reschedule. He's like, March 19th.
Oh my gosh. You're like,
I say,
no.
Yeah, no. You can just outright cancel it now. So I called around to a few other places and found a local place that is hyper local. It's not like a national chain kind of thing. It's just, Beaverton Appliance Repair or something like that. And they said, we can come out Friday at noon. And I said, okay.
Will you really be out at Friday at noon?
Well, they gave me Friday at noon or Friday at 2, where there are 2 slots that were open. And I said, I'll do the Friday at noon.
If somebody's going to get bumped, let it be the later person.
Let it be the person who calls in for the 2 o'clock appointment. So we've been without a dishwasher for, by Friday, it'll be a week. Not that that's the end of the world. I still know how to wash dishes by hand.
It's not the end of the world. There's still a bunch of dishes that we wind up washing by hand all the time. All the pots and pans and.
Yep.
Boy, speaking of appointments, though, I forget if I don't think I said this last week. So last week, there was supposed to be, somebody show up at between 8 and 10. Did I complain about this last week on the podcast? Because it was Tuesday, so it would have been before. Anyway, so they're supposed to show up. Well, I thought they were supposed to show up at 8. So I wound up calling the place at 9, going, hey, where are they? It's an hour late. And they're like, oh, well, it's a 2-hour window. They should be there sometime between 8 and 10. I'm like, okay. Well, sorry, my bad. So 10 o'clock comes and goes. 11 o'clock, I get a call. They're like, yeah, they're clear. They're running late. We'll somebody will call you later. 2 o'clock calls. Yeah. No, I think I called at the 2 o'clock, and they're like, I don't know, but let me get them to call you back. So, and then I get a call from the actual installer. This is for some, we had some Pergo installed upstairs. And, and he's like, yeah, I'm still working on the previous job, and I'm not going to be done for a couple hours yet. So, we're scheduled for you for a couple of days. Do you want me to come tonight, or do you want me to just show up in the morning? Oh, sorry. This must have been last Monday, because I was not going to be around on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. And so I told him that. I was like, well, I'm actually here. I'd hoped to look at the thing, and if you had any questions, talk about it with you tonight. He's like, all right, so I'll be by tonight. So the guy that was supposed to show up at 8 to 10, showed up at 6:30. and really just for a walkthrough, look at it, have me talk to him, and then he went away and showed up the next morning. So anyway, they did a good job. I'm happy with what they did, but that was actually one of the reasons why I was going to be out of the house last. I actually went into work last week, horror of horrors, was both for network purposes, because my network out here sucks, And I knew that there would be lots of banging around in the house. So
yeah,
I got an exception and went into work and actually sat alone in a conference room all day, which was fine. But
and probably alone in a building.
I saw one other person.
I doubt they're outside the security person.
Not a security person, and then I saw the security guard once. Yeah, pretty much, pretty much alone. Yeah, it was, which is fine. But now we've got that flooring all installed. It looks great. I guess nice. One of the other funny things that happened, part of that though, was I feel bad. The carpet. So we had same people. Had carpet installed on the stairs, replaced on the stairs. There's been a stain on the stairs forever, and this is the actual reason. But our stairs were like weird, like they weren't regularly shaped. Like the top step was 1.5 inches deeper, like longer of a step down than any of the other steps, and the bottom step was like essentially the same, shorter. It was like whoever did the math failed. I don't know. So, but when I asked, we got this through Lowe's. And so when I asked Lowe's, I'm like, oh, so can I just rip up the carpet and kind of check it out? And they're like, well, you can do whatever you want, but no, they won't take it away and stuff like that if you do any of the work. And I'm like, well, so guy gets here and I'm like, so, there's no special bull. I didn't know what was underneath there, but I'm like, there's no special bull nose or anything like that underneath the stairs, right? On the wood. And he's like, no, not if it's not exposed. Probably. And I'm like, okay, so when you take it apart, give me a chance to take a look at it. 'Cause if possible, I figured I've got some spare plywood out in the shop. I could just rip some steps and basically raise the top step up 3/4 of an inch to kind of take off most of that and raise
yeah.
and then I basically did. So there were 7 steps. So I cut 7 boards that basically raised every one of the steps 3/4 of an inch. And then for the short one, I cut like a 1/2 inch board it was a 3/4 inch board to like extend the step a little bit so that it was the normal size or about the normal size. And then I cut like a 1/4 inch piece of plywood on the next step down to extend it a little bit to kind of divvy out the in unevenness. So anyway, while the guy was kind of getting all this stuff prepped, I didn't want to like make him wait, and it was totally unplanned. He was, it was nice of him to not make a big stink out of doing something like this, but I real quick, went and took a bunch of measurements, went out and cut up a bunch of plywood and came back and screwed them down. And it made a huge difference. I'm super happy.
Good.
Anyway, that was kind of funny. So, my other funny thing this weekend, you know what I did? I bought a cow.
All right. Is this a milk cow, a friend cow, or a food cow?
This is a 2B mama cow for future meat cows. Because although the breed, hey, I don't, Germans are awesome. This is a German cow. Is basically what it is.
I was wondering how you were going to continue that sentence.
So like we have these German engineered chickens that are like stupid productive. Like, that I forget the name, I forget the breed of the chickens, but they're like, instead of the normal, 160, 180 eggs a year, they're like 220 or something like that. And the German cow, they're Gelfie is how it's pronounced, but GIELB something, bunch of letters. Anyway, it's evidently in German, it means yellow cow. But it's a German breed that is supposedly used to be at least a triple purpose breed: milk, meat, and oxen.
Oh,
so very gentle, very
okay.
But anyway, yeah. So it's going to be fun. It's red.
Okay.
It's cute.
That's not a sentence I expected to hear on I Got a Cow. But okay.
Well, yeah, it's kind of gonna be fun for the next year or two. But she's only six months old.
So when does she get to be full size?
Another year.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
All right.
Yeah, she's cute.
So not a baby cow, kind of more like a preteen cow.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, maybe a young teenager.
Okay.
Young teenager.
All right.
Anyway, that's funny.
I see you dropped in some follow-up again.
I did.
The follow-up that keeps on giving.
I didn't want to dwell on the whole Sunburst continuing, but this article was good and should at least be mentioned. And and there's other things that are probably going to come out that, SolarWinds was probably not the only company hacked. I saw another article this week from
Malwarebytes.
Oh, thank you, Malwarebytes. Yep. That said that they had the, it wasn't the SolarWinds attack, but they were attacked by the same actors. But this article that I'll put in here for follow-up is a deep dive blog by Microsoft on how did the actors use the backdoor that was initially installed, with SolarWinds, and basically pivot to using a command and control. And or they used Cobalt Strike loader to install, and so they could do command and control. So really, let's see, the main point here is, the initial backdoor would check in with the avsvmcloud.com, but for some people, the ones that were targeted, for some companies, the ones that were targeted, they then had additional traffic to go and basically load up the sort of second stage. But the tricky bit that was detailed here in the Microsoft report is how the attackers really carefully tried to separate the second stage from the first to try and sort of protect the first stage from being discovered. So in particular, because at the end of the day, if something was found and there, a process chain could be tracked back to figure out, hey, this is what happened, that whole process chain can be convicted. Whereas what they did here is they actually used a image file execution options debugger registry value for DLL host, which is executed periodically on Windows, but they didn't actually try and launch it. They just said, here, let me put this landmine in place, and then when some other execution of DLL host happened, the execution would trigger the launch of their script that they had done with the registry entry, and then that script would activate the Cobalt Strike beacon. But by doing that, it would have a completely clean parent-child process tree, completely disconnected from the SolarWinds process, and which would presumably, hopefully, prevent a SOC analyst or a forensics person from kind of walking the chain back and realizing, oh, the thing that was actually, the backdoor here is SolarWinds. So, and the script, when it got executed, cleans up after itself too. So, you had to kind of catch it in the act with having dropped the IFEO option, but without DLL host actually having been executed. Pretty tricky. And so there's a bunch more info in here, but that's kind of the follow-up I wanted to throw in here for the SolarWinds continues.
Mm-hmm. Well, my topic this week is more password stuff. I feel like it's been a little while since we've chatted about passwords, at least a week. So Google released Chrome 88 this week, I think, which came with FTP support being disabled in Chrome 88. Apparently, you could still do FTP : something in Chrome, in your Chrome browser, and it would download it. And it now also blocks any HTTP file downloads from an HTTPS website or web page. So you can't download a file. If you're on a secure website, you can't download a file from an insecure website.
Right. We talked about that coming quite a while back.
Yep. And then also Adobe Flash Player end of life at the end of 2020. So this is the version of Chrome that gets rid of their internal Flash Player. But as for passwords, there is now a very simple way to do password checks. So, and I tried it out earlier today, and then I later discovered this has been around for a while. The fix in Chrome 88 was to make it more obvious. Instead of having it buried in settings, you now can just go to your avatar in the Chrome window and click on it, and there's a little tiny key icon, next to your username.
Oh, okay, I can see that.
You click on the little key icon and hit the, hey, check my passwords, because some people use the browser to store their passwords. It will essentially go out and check and see if you have any compromised passwords. And so I ran it, and interestingly enough, I found 3 passwords, at least that I had saved in Chrome at some point in the past. Because for the most part, I use 1 password, but occasionally I think I allow Chrome to save some passwords.
I get saved passwords will appear here.
I was just looking through. I have a handful. There's probably about 20 passwords I have in here that I had saved. Anyways, and it found 3 compromised passwords for me. So
the browser I know that I do occasionally have passwords saved in is Safari. So I don't with Chrome, but sometimes with Safari, especially if I'm maybe still a little too lazy, and occasionally if it's an account that I really don't care about, it's still like another 4 or 5 clicks to get 1 password to appropriately create a new password. And sometimes it's just easier to let Safari say, choose a strong password for me. And I'll do that if I know that I just don't care about the account.
Right.
But yeah, okay. Well, that's cool. I hadn't actually read this before. I hadn't read this yet.
There's an easy fix. And if you're using Chrome, you can now use Chrome for managing all your passwords across your desktop and iOS, and apparently Android. Chrome's Android is getting the feature soon. So synchronization of passwords. So continue to make passwords.
So they
easier.
did it in Chrome for iOS before they did it for Chrome for Android?
Apparently that's what it says. Starting with Chrome, I'll read. Starting with Chrome 88, you can manage all of your passwords even faster and easier in Chrome settings on desktop and iOS. Chrome's Android app will be getting this feature soon, too. So, yes.
That's bizarre.
Well,
okay.
There you go. So there's no excuse for, password 123 as a password.
Weak passwords. All right. That's cool.
I am still looking forward to the day where we don't have passwords. It's got to be coming soon.
That will be a lovely day. But I mean, until that day occurs, or that day cannot occur until there's some other way, like a YubiKey or something like that you can use sort of as a replacement. But anywhere that you're trying to log in, and it still hasn't been, even though there's support for it now in iOS, right? But
yep.
It's not. It's not the natural thing yet. But I'm one of my favorite, I think, Bill Gates-isms, but I'm not sure who actually said it. But it's like people overestimate what they can get done in 1 year and underestimate what they can get done in 10. And so, there's a good arc of security, I think, in that particular respect. So We'll see. It's getting better.
Alrighty.
All right. So my topic today was I don't know how to pronounce this. DNSpooq. DNS.
I think you're supposed to say the S for spook as well as the DNS.
DNSpooq. Okay, I don't know.
At least looking from the logo, it's got a logo.
Well, so it's real if it's got a logo. That's right. So it's just slightly too clever for its own good, I think. Whatever. So this is a set of vulnerabilities in DNSmask, actually. So and there's a bunch. I think it was 7 disclosures. Yeah. 7 here, right at the top. 7 new vulnerabilities are being disclosed in common DNS software DNSmask, reminiscent of 2008 weaknesses in internet DNS architecture. So there's two groups basically of vulnerabilities here. Cache poisoning attacks and then buffer overflow vulnerabilities. But they can be combined in some ways. But the list of vendors or devices that use DNSmask, and it's spelled with a Q, DNSMASQ, is long and varied, it says. So includes Cisco, Android, Aruba devices. Aruba's a network vendor. Technicolor, that's interesting. I'm not sure why that's high on the list. Red Hat, Siemens, Ubiquiti, Comcast, and there's a table at the bottom that has a whole bunch more.
Right.
And I guess up at the top there was also this other paragraph that I particularly appreciated too. I'm going to go ahead and just read it here. But it says, given the vulnerabilities in DNS over the years, you would think that the security enhancement mechanisms that have been developed in response would be ubiquitous by now. Yeah, security issues in DNS are not new. And DNS, even if the security mechanisms are not ubiquitous, DNS is ubiquitous. Truly, truly ubiquitous. There were a couple of cartoons on the page here, and that's probably one of the ones that I'll have to throw on here. Did you see the cartoons?
Yes.
I'm not saying it was DNS, but it was DNS.
But it was DNS.
So, yeah, it's always DNS. So anyway, but so there are security extensions. I guess is probably the best way to say it, security extensions for DNS that can and should be deployed. But let's see, here's some stats here. For example, according to research from 2017, adoption of HSTS among the 1 million most popular websites was only at about 5%. According to some... Ouch. According to some rough estimates performed by JSOF, so JSOF is the name of the vulnerability or security research firm that wrote this paper. Let's see. According to some rough estimates, with the help of large internet companies and matching external sources, around 15 to 20% of internet traffic is still completely unencrypted. And then they say end users still click through to secure websites. That will always happen. That will always happen. Don't ever expect that to not happen. Anyway.
Right.
So, what about these particular vulnerabilities? Well, so with the poisoning attack, the issue is basically if I can poison a DNS resolver, then anybody who asks, hey, how do I get to, eric.com or, ericswebsite.com, I could say, Eric's website is, 1.1.1.1, which is obviously the Cloudflare DNS server. But that will then point all traffic that's trying to go to Eric's website to that other IP address. And so you can create a distributed denial of service by telling everybody who looks for google.com to go to ericswebsite.com because, by the way, ericswebsite.com probably can't take the Google traffic, for example. And or you could do that for, anything. The other thing they said is reverse DDoS, reverse distributed denial of service, which basically would be, I want to block John from ever actually getting to see Google. So, if somebody other than John replies, fine. But if John asks, Google not found. And then the third one they said here is a semi-wormable attack, which I didn't quite understand. And I think that it's because of how DNSmask must work. But basically they're saying that if you get a poisoned cache entry on a device on a one network, if that device hops networks, mobile device or something like that, goes and joins another network, that it could then poison that other network. So I guess I don't understand exactly what DNSmask is doing. But that's basically what they said in here. So that's cool. So DNSmask, the software, is its whole point is to cache DNS entries. So so that when if you've already asked for, hey, where is google.com, it can just say, oh, I got it. I'm right here. You don't have to actually go out to a name server to get the resolution. That's the intent, at least. So I did not read. There is a link to a detailed white paper in here that's got more detail. But essentially, for the poisoning, how the poisoning works is it says, let me see, the vulnerabilities work by reducing the entropy of the TX ID, transaction ID, I guess, or transmit ID, and source port. They should be randomized and provide 32 bits of entropy. However, due to the use of a weak hash to identify the DNS request and a loose matching of request to response, the entropy can be greatly reduced and only 19 bits need to be guessed, making cache poisoning very feasible. The way that DNSmask treats CNAME records further allows you to spoof a chain of CNAME records and effectively poison 9 DNS records at the same time. To execute the attack, a suitable setup must be set in place by the attacker, which is not difficult to perform. For the cache poisoning, devices that do not use the cache feature of DNSmask will be much less affected, but not completely immune, presumably because the others on the network. So that's kind of the interesting thing. And then the other the other set of vulnerabilities are 4 buffer overflow vulnerabilities that are also in DNSmask. So which anytime you have buffer overflow vulnerabilities, I'm assuming they did a whole bunch of fuzzing is one of the ways they came up with some of this. But good for them. Let's see, it says the worst of these vulnerabilities could lead to a remote code execution on the vulnerable device. These vulnerabilities in and of themselves would pose only limited risk, but they become especially powerful since they can be combined with the cache poisoning vulnerabilities to produce a more potent attack. There was also a comment in the article, I don't think I pulled it out, that it could be combined with other DNS layer attacks as well. So interesting there. The only other piece of data about the vulnerability, at least, that I pulled out was that the high severity one was a high severity heat-based overflow vulnerability that could potentially lead to remote code execution when DNSmask is configured to use DNSsec. So ironically, DNSsec is one of the, in fact, probably the primary
things that nobody uses.
Security. Well, yeah, things nobody uses. Yeah, security extensions to DNS. But let's see. It says the vulnerability resides in the early stages of DNSsec validation, rendering DNSsec's defense against DNS attacks ineffective. Dun dun dun. So the the deadbolt didn't have the key. I don't know. Something about that. So the other thing I was going to mention about this, though, is it seems as if the disclosure was well done. So it says the disclosure started on August 2020 and the embargo ended on January 2021, marking approximately 5 months. And it says with the help of certain volunteers from several companies, a working group was formed, combining expertise and extended reach of members from JSOF, CERT, Cisco, Google, Red Hat, Pi-hole, and Simon Kelly, the maintainer of DNSmask, to ensure that the DNSpooq vulnerabilities would be effectively fixed and well documented and communicated. So,
cool.
Good for them. It's probably not necessarily fixed everywhere that you are, even if the distros have got them fixed and everything's been patched. But
right,
update as you can. There is a table at the bottom of the article that we'll link here in the show notes to a bunch of companies, more than 40, I think it said, that are potentially vulnerable. At least, anyway, that was the one I pulled out this week.
Well, ready for my something fun?
How about something fun? Yeah, hit me up. What's something fun?
So I was not aware that there were colors still being discovered, but apparently there was a pigment of the color blue that was the first new blue. I still not exactly sure how they define new blue, discovered in over 200 years by Oregon State, researchers at Oregon State. So this is kind of a cool article on Yinmen blue, and it gets its name from the elements yttrium, indium, and manganese. So apparently there is a new blue that has been discovered and now has EPA approval for artists to use it in artist materials because of its chemical makeup or whatever. But it came from researchers at Oregon State University who were doing some research into chemicals for semiconductor use and inadvertently, serendipitously discovered a new blue, the first new blue discovered in 200 years. So I guess part of the appeal is its high opacity, so you don't need to apply much of it to get a good coating, and it has unusual, I'm quoting here because these aren't words I would normally use in a sentence, unusual hyper-spectral properties reflecting most infrared radiation, which keeps the pigment cool. So that apparently makes it well suited for energy-saving applications on building exteriors for industrial use. And the art world likes the color just because it's a new color. And I'm still the dumb guy who goes, it looks blue to me. But there's a new crayon, Crayola color that tries to match this blue, but it still is relatively hard to come by because you can buy it in just 40 milliliter batches for $180 for whatever that is. To give you a comparison, other colors of similar whatever sell 75 milliliters, so almost twice as much for less than $9. So
wow,
it still apparently is very expensive because it's expensive to make, and there's an underground that's using it. The article was fun to read. kind of all around the world, and there's kind of an underground people figuring out how to make the color themselves. But now apparently it is now approved by the EPA. They've done whatever testing is necessary under the U.S.'s Toxic Substance Control Act to prove that it is safe for paint.
Huh.
There you go. But apparently it's only approved for sale as a paint, a finished paint. You can't sell the pigment or powder yet.
Huh.
For whatever reason. So anyways, a fun article on the color blue.
That is totally awesome. Yeah, there's a deep vertical in everything. Nerds are everywhere. It's awesome.
Everyone's a nerd. It's just what context.
Exactly. What is it that, really floats your boat?
That's right.
That's awesome. Okay, that's cool. I gotta actually read. I skimmed the article, but I feel like
gotta go back and read it. It's a fun article.
It's worth a deep read here.
All right. What's your fun?
All right. Well, I had chosen, or I'd at least thrown in Slack, a different fun thing. So I'm going to go ahead and do two. My first one, the one that I had planned to use, is dire wolf DNA study, which was came up on National Geographic, which was cool. I'm picturing this researcher who just crisscrossing the United States saying, "Hey, do you have any wolf bones that I can take a sample of various things?" So, because there was a quote in here that said, so in 2016, Perry began crisscrossing the United States by bus, rental car, and airplane on a bone collecting tour that took her to museums and university collections to examine and collect bits of dire wolf bone in a bid to get enough DNA for genetic analysis. So that was the whole point, is they wanted to investigate the DNA of dire wolves to try and figure out how closely related they are to regular wolves. So they started trying to get samples out of the La Brea tar pits, because there's a ton of evidently dire wolf fossils there. But the quote there is, "The tar pit is a hot, bubbly mess, and that doesn't do very nicely for DNA preservation." So, not good, evidently.
Uh-huh.
But they did say that from the La Brea samples, they got a collagen protein sequence that they were able to compare dire wolves with domestic dogs and gray wolves, coyotes, African wolves, and that the dire wolf was dramatically different. So that's kind of what instigated the rest of this. So she goes across all around and basically is able to isolate 5 different specimens. The oldest being 50,000 years old, the youngest being 12,000 years old. So 12,000 could at least hypothetically have overlapped with, perhaps early humans, but certainly wolves, coyotes, foxes, etc. in the Americas.
Right.
But the DNA analysis says that the dire wolf lineage split off from the one leading to gray wolves around 5.5 million years ago and remained isolated despite later overlapping in territory with other canid species for thousands of years. Such genetic exclusion is unusual between related canid species. So I just thought this was really cool that, this article, and then the final kind of link the comment from the article was that you would have this convergence in body form, even though you have such a long period of separation, suggests the wolf body form is very, very successful and has been for a very long time. So it was very cool. So check it out. That's an article about dire wolf DNA. But after this morning, I also would be remiss if I did not say that my second something fun, or my real something fun this week, is Amanda Gorman's poetry recitation at the inauguration this morning. So in your skipping through, did you actually catch this?
No. I now need to go back and do that.
Okay. You need to go and you need to watch this. This was like the standout moment of the inauguration, in my not so humble opinion. She was amazing. She made me cry. Yeah, go check it out. And I'm sure there's replays all over the place. And I think there's a replay in the link that I'm putting in here. But so she is 22 years old, a Los Angeles resident, daughter of a school teacher, and evidently she started writing early. The article said, in an attempt to cope with a speech impediment. Her writing took off, and at age 14, it says she joined Write Girl, which is a nonprofit that helps teen girls discover the power of their voice through creative writing. She was named the Youth Poet Laureate of Los Angeles at age 16, and a few years later, while studying at Harvard, she became the first National Youth Poet Laureate. And evidently, Dr. Biden saw her give a reading at the Library of Congress and suggested in December that she come read something at the presidential ceremony, which is fantastic. And it was incredibly moving. It was amazing. So go check out Amanda Gorman. And I saw more stuff on Twitter this evening, really. And so I went and I actually followed her, but I don't know how many followers she had yesterday, but she was over 1 million today. So good for her. Good for her. Good for her. So check it out. That's really, it was amazing.
I will have to do that. Very cool.
The actual poem was called The Hill We Climb. So searching for that may also get it.
Thanks, John.
Yep.
Wolves and poetry.
What's that?
The color blue, wolves and poetry. Gotcha.
The color blue, wolves and poetry. That kind of a nice broad spectrum of interests there.
There you go.
Well, have a great evening. Have a great week.
Have a good night, John.
I'll talk to you next week.
Alrighty.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye, Eric.